I'm very happy to welcome Annette Mann. Annette Mann is Vice President Product Management in the Lufthansa Group. And I think it's fair to say that Annette Mann is some kind of internal troubleshooter when it comes to product management items in the Lufthansa Group. She has, during the time with Lufthansa, been responsible for various new products in the Lufthansa Group. And since the Corona crisis started, she is a member of the operational crisis team, and she leads the part which has to do with customer-related subjects in the Lufthansa Group Restart program. Annette Mann will tell us how Lufthansa will change and how it will not change, and we're looking much forward to your presentation, Annette. Yours is the word, please.
Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction. Happy to be here and to share what's happening right now in Lufthansa Group and how we are preparing for opening up international air travel. So production, I'd like to share my screen, please. I hope you all can see my screen now. Restart customer. You all know the world has changed so much since Corona, and for us as airlines, it was really a challenge because at the lowest point, we had about 2% of passengers. So we never completely stopped our operations, but we were at about 2%, which is very, very close to just a shutdown. What we now do is, we're opening up, and of course we're looking into what has changed in terms of regulations, but also what has changed in terms of customer perception and customer needs. And there I will bring you to my first picture. On the left-hand side, you see what we were confronted with. So the whole social media was really full of these kinds of pictures. Cabin crew completely covered in plastic, pictures of people in a medical environment getting tested, then surveys telling that 80% of people are really afraid of flying and think that flying is the worst kind of transportation possible right now. And that's kind of what you find in public. What we see actually when we talk to our customers, and we do that very regularly, we have an online panel with a couple of thousand Lufthansa Group customers we ask questions to regularly. We see a little bit of a different picture. So media is very, very negative. What we see with our customers is that many of them, and what you see here is the picture for Swiss, but it's very similar to our other hub airlines, is that the majority, the vast majority, is not as anxious and relatively relaxed about, okay, what does it mean to fly in times of Corona? That's the one thing. And so we had lots of internal discussions. How do we actually approach this crisis? Because of course we saw that many airlines were very quick with lots of measures. And as we are airlines from Lufthansa is German, Swiss is of course Switzerland, Austrian, I think what we all have in common in our DNA of our airlines is that we kind of try to approach things rationally, and that we really like to work with facts. And we have really decades of experience with the professional risk management. And so we were confronted with, I'm part of the operational crisis team, and we had everyday discussions about what's going on there, what's this virus, what is dangerous about this virus, how can you get actually infected, but what is maybe not that dangerous. And at the same time, we were confronted with people being super afraid. We saw lots of irrational fears coming up, partly also, pushed forward by media. And so this was for us really a hard time to decide, okay, shall we just go like many others did and do measures to show everyone like how seriously we take this, even if many of these measures are maybe irrational and don't help anything to make anyone safer. And in the end, I have to say, of course, we don't neglect that people need the psychological safety. However, we still try to have this approach of being quite rational and objective, and base our decisions on facts. And I will tell you a little bit later what this actually means. First of all, I want to stress something. You've heard that maybe many times. Airlines keep telling that flying is not that dangerous. It's not very likely that you get infected on board of an aircraft. And why is that? Although it's such a small space, it has to do with how the air exchange works in an aircraft, and it has to do with all the filters installed in every our aircraft, the so-called HEPA filters. And we keep saying that this air is exchanged about every 3 minutes. You don't have that anywhere in your offices, in a bus, in what kind of restaurants. That's very specific to an aircraft. But this is actually what currently helps us to keep everyone safe. And we by now have also procedure that this kind of air condition, including the usage of the filters, is not just active if you're on board and in flight, but we also have procedures running that this is the case already during boarding and deboarding. So we make sure the system is running. And so far, we really have no conflict. That doesn't mean that is zero, for sure not. But so far, we don't have confirmed cases, and there are only some very rare cases known worldwide. We know that doesn't really help to keep everyone safe, because that's something rational, and people still, there's lots of psychology behind. Do we feel it's dangerous to fly or not? So of course we asked our passengers, what do they expect in these times when they fly? What kind of measures do we need to take as airlines? What do they expect? What we saw is this picture, and I don't want to run you through everything, but what was kind of interesting, we asked for measures along the travel chain for Corona, and the first two top measures were flexibility and cancellation. It wasn't even about hygiene. So the most important thing right now for passengers is, when I book, I wanted to be super flexible. I want to be able to cancel, and of course we have implemented that. So all of our Lufthansa tickets right now are can be rebooked. They have much more flexibility than before. Then, of course, not very surprising, there's several hygiene measures people expect us to do. There is, of course, the expectation to keep people apart from each other whenever there's enough space on board. We also have the expectation that there is some kind of health check before departure, making sure that we don't take people with symptoms on board. And there's also lots of expectation when it comes to distancing at the airport, so to make sure there's no big crowds, no chaos. So that's what we see. Something very, very interesting here is that what people don't expect us to do, and now as the traffic is already taking up again, people actually don't expect us to reduce service. They don't expect all these packaged meals we see in the market. They don't expect that we clearly reduce the interaction with crews. So that's quite interesting that we see lots of airlines doing that, but we cannot really confirm that our passengers expect us to do that. Even the opposite, they're now demanding more and more that regular service comes back. So what have we actually implemented? We went through, let's say 4 clusters of measures. So these are measures implemented for our airlines. Of course, we looked into the cluster of creating physical distance. So what do we do? Whenever you're at the airport, we make sure together with the airports that there's floor markings, there's barriers, There's protective screens at the counters wherever feasible. We slowed down processes. We made sure that the security process is with more distance. We slowed down the boarding, also the deboarding. We do wherever possible the contactless boarding, so that you don't have so many contacts at the airport. And as I said, super important, we don't have this physical distancing on board. So of course, if the flight is not full, we keep everyone as separate as possible, but we don't have the official blocking of any seats. However, we make sure that when you are on the plane, it is safe, as we have the air condition in place together with filters. And as I said, there's not any known case of infection on board so far. Of course, we also did intensification of hygiene. So we ask our passengers to do a self-medical check and a health declaration when they check in. There's a mandatory mouth-nose cover you have to wear during your flight. And also at the airport, whatever local regulations tell you. Of course, there's additional onboard hygiene. So there's disinfection wipes, there's extra disinfectant. Also for the crew, there's new procedures for the crew to intensify their hand hygiene. There's intensified surface cleaning, disinfectant dispensers along the whole journey at the airports. Yeah, since this week, we also have opened the cooperation with a COVID test center. So when you, for example, need a health check for immigration or to avoid quarantine wherever you go, then you can do these kinds of tests at our hub airports in Frankfurt and also Munich. That's just a new service for our guests. When it comes to reducing personal contact, we looked into our digital processes. There's lots of processes in place. Also, that was the case before Corona, which now helps us. There's contactless check-in, online check-in. There's contactless baggage counters, so you can use all that. We have modified our onboard service. I'll tell you something about that in a minute. Also to reduce the most intense contact with cabin crew, and we have adapted our lounge product wherever feasible. There's first openings again of lounges, especially at our hubs, and we make sure that, of course, their social distancing is respected. Yeah, what's maybe most important, that people know all about that, and we have worked hard to get out transparent information. Our websites are completely reworked, and there's lots of information available. I'll show you one example later, the so-called travel briefing, where you can get all the information you need to prepare for your travel, that you have a good idea what will you expect at the airport, what can be your expectation on board, and also at your arrival destination. We have reworked all our announcements to make clear what are the new procedures, where should you please take care and support us in processes, for example, when deboarding, that we don't have the typical deboarding situation, everyone's jumping up and queuing in the aisle, but yeah, several new procedures where we will guide you through new announcements. And quite new, also launched last week, we have the so-called Bring Me Home guarantee. So we will make sure that everyone can travel with peace of mind. We have included new features into our tariffs without making our prices more expensive, and where you can be sure that there's some insurance behind if you have travel abroad, or there's one tariff where you will be just very, very flexible. If you feel you want to go home, we will make that possible with the booking guarantee. This is valid right now in Europe, because there we can ensure that with all the regulations in Europe, that we still can bring you home if you want to go home with this flexibility. We're still working on something which is then valid hopefully one day for long haul, but that's a bit more complicated. So I promise you to get a little bit more in detail. I chose the example of onboard services because, as I said, people actually expect us to bring back service, and we see ourselves as premium airlines. And for premium airlines, we really, from the very beginning, wanted to make sure that even during Corona, we want to do the best service possible. We want to still be in the premium league. And so what we did is we went through every single step of service procedures together with our hygiene experts, together with our doctors. We have an own medical center in Lufthansa Group with several specialized doctors who helped us understand how this virus can be infectious, and we worked through every part of the service. And just to give you an idea how we work in Lufthansa Group, how we try to understand how we can still ensure a safe service, but still be, and live hospitality. There's several examples. Of course, we had to cancel some services for hygiene reasons. For example, we can't have carts with open food right now in the cabin. That's just not, that wouldn't fulfill the hygiene requirements. We can't have help yourself baskets where several people are maybe taking a piece of bread. That's not possible. We can't have the galley buffets right now. We don't collect the headphones in economy class just to make sure and protect our crew, because protection is not just about passengers, it's also protecting our crew. So that's the measures we take. One very interesting part was actually the hotel service. Our doctor said it would be critical to have a hotel service, but we just learned that both our crew but also our passengers were just very, very cautious and didn't feel comfortable anymore with this service. And so we decided to just abandon it for the moment. And we have no in-flight duty-free services right now. So that's what's canceled. But actually, lots of services are still possible. Some have to be modified, so that's what you can see here in the middle, and some can be completely reactivated because from a medical and hygiene point of view, they're safe. So what's modified? So, for example, you get a new glass with every refill. We make sure that there's some reduced interaction. For example, on long haul flights, we had a service where, it was kind of a restaurant service before in our business class. We are back now to a tray service just to reduce the interaction here a little bit. We use more trays to hand things out. We adapted our fresh fruit assortment because, it's more safe, for example, to hand over a banana or an orange, which you peel yourself, instead of handing out an apple. And we allow our cabin crew the usage of gloves in certain service procedures. That's, by the way, also a very interesting part. Lots of people expect cabin crew to wear gloves. However, it's actually wearing gloves is not necessarily safe for someone else, but it's safer for the person wearing this glove. And there's several scientific studies which say people wearing gloves, that's not safer than not wearing gloves, as long as you keep a good hand hygiene. And there's some evidence that when you wear gloves, there's a tendency that you do a lot less hand hygiene. And so that's kind of one example, very small example, where we try to understand, okay, is it just looking good and feeling more safely, or is there actually a good reason for wearing gloves? And there is some situation where it makes sense, but there's other situation where it doesn't make sense. And so we try to really find the right balance there. Last but not least, the service is reactivated. We have a completely regular blanket service. We rechecked all our service change. Of course, everything is gets through the laundry before it gets used. That was the case before the crisis. It is still the case. And so, of course, we use blankets and pillows and mattresses and all what our passengers need, especially on long haul flights. We also brought back the menu card. It actually helps reducing the intensity of interaction because people can just read themselves what's on the menu. There's a lot less talk. And so it's actually a good measure. So we brought it back, and it's your personal copy, so nobody has to be afraid that there's some infection risk. We also brought back meal choices, and we also brought back the nearly regular beverage service. There's some reduction on shorter routes in economy class, but the reason is not hygiene. Our cabin crew is so busy these times with all these extra announcements, special forms for passengers. So there's simply not the time for a regular beverage service, but as the forms and processes get a little bit more back to normal, we will just try to also bring the beverages back to our shorter route. So that's kind of our approach. There's one important disclaimer. There is, of course, the possibility that we get some extra regulations from certain countries where we need to reduce service. For example, right now on flights to China, we probably cannot have the full service. And of course, there might be different regulations over time. Review these kinds of services all the time. But I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea how we work, how we really think through the little details and make sure that still everyone's safe, but we still do a great service. Last but not least, we're working on lots of other topics. Corona reduce, I go through all that. I talked about the Bring Me Home guarantee, the COVID test centers. Of course, we're looking into under what can we bring back lounges and lounge service. A bit more tricky because there was a buffet service before, which is kind of difficult right now in Corona times, so we have to but honestly, it's a big challenge, and I think it's a big challenge for our whole industry. We cannot control the whole travel chain. I mean, we can control what happens on board of our aircraft, but before and after, it's quite a challenge. And even if we're in very close contact to all the airports, it is a challenge, will remain a challenge, and there's everyday situations where we get new rules and regulations by authorities, and we just have to do that. So it is super difficult to put a clear standard. We try, but I make everyone aware that it's close to impossible that it will work out every single time. I think it's important that we explain why when it doesn't, but that's just the reality we will have to face over the next weeks and months in the travel industry. As I said, we try hard to still keep people informed. This is one example about what we do here. It's the travel briefing. This is the example of Swiss. This is also available for Lufthansa and airlines. You can see here on the different pages, it tells you what you could check or should check before your journey, what's happening at the airport, what's on board, and there's all links included where you can get more details. What's the service on board? What about the travel regulation, the hand luggage? And so you can work your way through, get all the information you need, especially if you fly for the very first time after maybe a longer break. And whatever you're interested in, I hope you find it online. We have lots of communication formats right now, customer letters, posts on social media. We have new video formats where you can just get an idea. What does it feel to travel right now? There's lots of webinars like today here. So this was it from my side for the moment. Thanks for listening. And now I'm very much looking forward to your questions. And I'd like to stop sharing, please.
Thank you, Annette. That was highly interesting to get an inside view into the actual details, what's going on. Perhaps a question, looking a bit further. The airline industry all got a lot of help, and the help is mainly in terms of loan. You will have a lot less revenue the next couple of years. You will have a lot of money to pay back. The industry will cope with that. How will Lufthansa look in? I know it's a difficult question, but look in 3 years' time.
Yeah, that's a very, very good question, and I think I would, lots of people would like to know how to answer that. Honestly, right now we're adjusting to the situation, and from a personal point of view, you know, there's the saying, never waste a good crisis, and I think we just have to keep that in mind. I mean, we are a very big company, and we're also a kind of complicated company. We're there for a very long time now, and things build up complex. We're sometimes a bit complicated in our structures. Every big company is sometimes also, discussing a little bit more too much the internal stuff, and maybe loses sometimes a little bit of focus what's happening out there. And I think this crisis will not just force us in a also positive way to refocus and to really focus on what's the core of traveling, what's really important to our customers, because that's why people choose to fly Lufthansa and Swiss and Austrian airlines, and we have to understand that really carefully and work towards that, and have a great product still, because only in this way we can earn the money to buy back our debts, and we have to read of all of us in the industry.
Yeah. There's a question here from someone anonymous, wishing you the best. My question is, when will Lufthansa and SunExpress will carry much more European visitors to Europe? To Turkey. Can you answer? You don't know.
I'm not sure what's meant. I mean, with many countries, I mean, we're very closely monitoring where people can actually travel when it comes to travel restrictions, and we build our flight plan according to where we can actually fly people to, and where they also can come back without maybe getting into quarantine. So that's the core of our flight plan. Yeah. So whatever is possible, we will use these opportunities, because that's exactly the way how we need to get back into business. And if there is opportunities, if there is a market, we will fly there. At the moment, Turkey is just closed for most travelers, and so I don't know when this will open up.
Under the risk, the US, Brazil, Russia, and so forth, they are closing borders outside EU. And they said, will that kill the aviation industry? I think that's more or less the question we had before. What will happen to the industry? What will happen to Lufthansa? Yeah. There's a lot of hard work ahead of you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We absolutely believe that it won't kill the industry, because there will always be the wish and also the need for travel. I mean, look at all these people who have their families really globally distributed. Look at all the global companies with businesses in all kinds of countries. Look at the people who want to discover the world and travel, and that will come back. And we even see it now. People would like to travel, but of course the circumstances have to be right. They have to be allowed to travel, and also the situation at the destination has to be suitable in terms of, if I want to be on vacation, I can't go into 2 weeks of quarantine, so I don't travel at all. But we feel that people really want to travel again, and so no, the aviation industry won't die.
Correct, but it might consolidate, right?
Yeah, most likely. Yeah.
There's a Kristen Medina asking, is there any quarantine required? I mean, but that is for the destinations. You don't have any quarantine, right?
Well, it really depends from where to where. So within Europe, Europe has opened up again for many destinations. So it is possible to travel within Europe. But when you come from a so-called third country into Europe, you still, well, there's lots of restrictions. And if you can travel into Europe, you still have to follow, in many cases, 2 weeks of quarantine. And yeah, there is no general answer to can I travel and do I have to get on quarantine. It virtually changes every day who can travel where, under which circumstances. Yeah. That's the reality.
Annette, time is up. Thank you so much. I found it very interesting, very useful to get into the nitty-gritty stuff, what is actually taking place, what is going on in such a big, complex organization. Very useful views. Thank you so much, Annette.
Thanks for the invitation.
Welcome.